All right, class, we're going to start with our first lecture out of 3 on creating a resistance training program. So we're going to kind of wrap up the semester trying to tie in everything that we've learned so far about the benefits of resistance training, the different principles that we learned about, and then all the different kinds of exercises that we've been exposed to. All right, so now we're going to put it together and actually create a resistance training program. So the first step in creating a resistance training program is the initial consult, okay? Because when we're making a program, we need to know who it is for. This is the concept of specificity, okay? We need to know what their goals are, what is their exercise history. That's going to play a big part in how much they can handle, maybe what worked for them, what didn't work for them, what their ability level or limitations may be, what kind of time do they have available to commit to the program, what sort of equipment do they have to use, and then what sort of recovery factors are going to play a role in their ability to handle the training that they're given. So we're going to touch on all of these specifically to get a better understanding of why an initial consult is important. So we need to set goals because when we're doing a resistance training program, there needs to be some sort of purpose as to why we're doing it. Obviously, it is healthy, but it's important that the goals are clear. All right. And if somebody's more emotionally attached to the goals that they're trying to achieve, this is going to make them more likely to stick to it. So if somebody just says, I want to lift weights because I feel bad and I think I should, that is not going to be a very good reason for them to stick to it. Whereas if somebody in this example says to be strong enough to play with their grandchildren, there's a dire need and desire to be strong enough to carry out an act of daily living that is very important to someone. They're going to be a lot more motivated to stick with it. Some other examples, pretty common ones that you'll hear in a resistance training program. We've got just to feel better, to look better. Body composition is one of the main goals that you'll see. You'll hear people say, I want to be more toned, so have more energy, do a pull up. If somebody can tie some sort of emotional response to any of those goals, it's going to be more likely for them to stick with it. Hopefully most of you have heard of SMART goals. This is just sort of a good acronym to think of when you're setting goals. So the S stands for, is the goal specific? We need to know, what exactly do you want to achieve? How much? You want to do a pull-up. Is that 1 pull-up, 2 pull-ups? Is it measurable? So how are you going to know that you achieved your goal? If somebody just says, I just want to feel better, how are you going to know that they actually feel better? Is there going to use some sort of readiness or some sort of questionnaire to see what their daily energy looks like? All right, so how are you going to know when you reach it? Is the goal attainable? This is your job as a fitness professional to understand adaptations and to communicate with your client or whoever you're programming for that their goal is realistic and attainable. If somebody says, I want to lose 30 pounds this month, you need to slow them down a little bit and start talking about realistic, attainable goals. Is it relevant? Okay, this ties into that emotional response. Why is the goal important to you? Is it relevant to your life? If you say that I want to have bigger arms, but you have no purpose for it and it really doesn't do anything for you, why would you do it? All right, but if that's going to be good for your self-esteem, maybe you're trying to pick up some chicks, okay, maybe it's got some relevancy to it. All right, so the goal has to have some sort of purpose to you. And then, is the goal timely? When do you want to achieve it by? It's important to have deadlines so that way we can have a clear path to get there and sort of set those expectations. You all know what it's like. If you don't have a deadline for something, you'll get to it when you get to it. But if you put some sense of urgency to it, okay, there's going to be a little bit more hustle. What is the person's exercise history? Have they exercised before at all? So if they have, what kind of exercise did they do? What worked? What didn't work? Did they ever play sports when they were younger? And how long ago was all this stuff? Okay, have they bounced around from fitness routines? Is it somebody that hasn't exercised since high school, which was 20 years ago? Okay, so having an understanding of what their background is going to better suit you to understand what they can handle. If they have no exercise history at all, it's important to start conservative and build from there. It is your job to set them up for success. You can't just assume that, oh, they look kind of fit, so I'm going to have them start doing pull-ups. And you throw them up on that pull-up bar and they don't budge. Okay, that can be very demoralizing and discouraging for someone. So make sure that you set them up for success and build from there. Okay, get a feel for them in the first session or two or the first week of workouts. Kind of see what they're capable of. If they're crushing it, keep ramping it up. Okay, sort of tying into the exercise history is the ability level and limitations. So if we know what they've done before, this can give us an idea of these things. So we can also put people through an exercise assessment. There's tons of different assessments out there. We're not going to go through those in this class. Hopefully maybe you covered them in other classes or can be exposed to some of them in the future, but this is going to also give you an opportunity to see what somebody's abilities are. Sometimes people can overestimate their current abilities based on what they used to be able to do. So you talk to that 40-year-old guy telling you how he used to be able to bench press 315 in high school, and the dude can not even bench over 200 when you meet with him. Okay, so some people are going to overestimate because they don't want to feel bad about themselves. They like to think that they're more capable than they are. So just take that with a grain of salt and set them up for success. And do they have any current or previous injuries or limitations? Any underlying medical conditions? These are all important to know when you're creating that program, so that way we do no harm. That is rule number 1, do no harm. We also need to know what kind of time and equipment they have available. So once we get a better feel for the person, we need to get a better feel for the environment that they're going to be working out in. So how much time during the week do they have to dedicate towards a program? Most people are going to overestimate if they're motivated. Somebody says, I want to start working out. I can do it 5 days a week. Let's get after it. You need to slow them down a little bit. So kind of in this example here, somebody says they want to work out 5 times a week. You tell them, let's start with 3 times. We'll add an optional 4th day if you can get it in, and then we'll build from there. Again, this is just setting somebody up for success. Don't overwhelm them with too many days of exercise, especially if they're starting a new habit, because if you set 5 days and then they start missing a day or 2 a week, that's going to be sort of discouraging. They're going to be missing essential components to the resistance training program. Put the important stuff in there for 3 times a week, and if they are crushing it for weeks or months or whatever it may be, add that 4th day, add that 5th day, and just start building. So what time during the day are they going to dedicate towards working out? And what kind of barriers or excuses might come up with this? I find it to be very beneficial if they are a morning person or don't have a problem waking up and they work out first thing in the morning. Okay, those 5 a.m., 6 a.m. people that work out, usually there's not a lot of distractions at that time and they can get it in. Somebody that's going to work out after work and has kids might have some sort of barriers and excuses that they'll need to battle with in this program. So these are things that you need to sort of look forward to in the future and brainstorm ways that you can avoid missing training sessions. All right, adherence is very important. And then what kind of equipment do they have? Or what kind of equipment are they comfortable with using? Maybe they have everything under the sun, but some of these more complex pieces of equipment might not be for that client. Free weights are going to require a little bit more instruction, so somebody that's experienced can be probably okay on their own. Somebody that's not might require some personal training or one-on-one attention, as opposed to machines where kind of anybody can hop on those, look at the picture, and get the exercise in. We can also use certain equipment as an alternative. So as we looked at in the weight room at Lincoln, we had that safety squat bar with the handles that came in front. That can be used for somebody with tight shoulders, or somebody can use a hack squat machine as opposed to a leg press or something like that. So there's different kinds of equipment that we can modify, maybe based on what sort of limitations they're working around, or maybe something that sets them up at a better angle where they can feel the muscle that they're trying to work the most. We also need to understand what is that person's recovery look like. So going back to setting them up for success. If we just bury this person into the ground with the workout program, that is not setting them up for success. That's going to be discouraging, and they're going to go backwards, not forwards. You can only work out as hard as you recover. So what does their week look like? What kind of life stresses is this person going through? The example I'm using here is a high school athlete with little responsibilities, no job, no kids, no nothing. They might have a ton of energy to work out hard, all right? Maybe send that kid can work out 5 days a week, push it, high intensity. They're hitting PRs every week versus maybe a mom that works a job or two with 3 kids. She might not have the energy at the end of the day to push through a hard workout. So you're just trying to check that box, give her the appropriate dose to where she will still get a beneficial response from resistance training, but not burying her into the ground. Are they sleeping? Do they eat their vegetables, get their protein in, drink their water? All right, and do they have an active job? Somebody that works construction all day, shoveling concrete, maybe super active, but they want to do some sort of resistance training. You're going to do the bare minimum with that person. Okay, they're getting tons of lifting in throughout the day, tons of physical activity. You just need to do enough to maybe get them a little bit stronger, maybe throw some exercises in there to keep them healthy and keep them safe, some isolation stuff, some stability stuff. Okay, so understand what somebody's day or week looks like, and these are also things that you can improve upon, right? So if somebody's starting a training program and then they start to hit a plateau, maybe the next step to them progressing or handling harder training is they need to get their nutrition in check. All right, so you can only work out as hard as you recover, so these things are going to play a factor in how much work you can give somebody. Now that we've sort of had that initial consult, we need to understand what their goals are or what their abilities are. The recommendations that I'm giving are averages, and everything is on a spectrum. For example, it is better to work out 1 day a week than no days a week. Some people can work out 9 times a week if that's all their life revolves around, is being a full-time athlete. All right, but these are just going to be some sort of general recommendations. Somebody just wanting to resistance train for general health, 2 non-consecutive days throughout the week is going to be pretty good for them. Okay, if you can get in 2 days of lifting some weights, getting them stronger, that's going to keep their bone density up, keep them healthy, all right, and just keep them well-rounded. Somebody that's looking for maybe a little bit more performance-oriented goals, maybe they really want to achieve a body composition, get that pull-up, do better in their sport. A novice just starting off, 2 to 3 days a week, and you can build from there. Once they become intermediate, getting them up to 3 or 4 days a week of lifting. Somebody a little bit more advanced, been at it for a couple years, 4 to 7 days a week is sort of that range. All right, it's all going to also depend on what their recovery looks like, what the training volume or intensity looks like for each session. If they're going to be doing 7 days a week, I can tell you that not all 7 of those days are going to be very heavy days. Right? We need to have some sort of balance between lighter days, heavier days, or alternating muscle groups in order to accommodate that recovery. And this is all going to be paired with some sort of cardiovascular exercise, right? This is resistance training class, so that's what we're going to stick to, but we all know that having cardiovascular exercise is going to be good for both performance and health. Okay, we need a healthy heart. Now we're going to get into some parts of creating the program. We need to decide what kind of weekly split we're going to use for this person. All right, so how many days a week are they going to commit to, and what is going to be the focus of each of those days? We need to decide on what exercises we're going to use. Okay, what's the goal? What exercises can or can't they do? Understanding within workout order of exercises. All right, so how do we put where and what during that workout? And then we're going to put it together into a program. So when we start with setting up a weekly split, we need to understand that muscle groups generally require 24 to 72 hours to recover from a training session. This is going to depend on how hard did you hit that muscle and maybe the size of the muscle as well. It's going to be more beneficial if we can stimulate a muscle group 2 to 3 times a week as opposed to just destroying that muscle 1 time a week. You'll see that very common in some old school bodybuilding routines where you do your chest on Monday, back on Tuesday, legs on Wednesday, rest on Thursday, shoulders and arms on Friday. Right? We're just hitting that muscle once a week, but you're destroying it. So you just get really, really sore, and then you feel like you did a lot. Whereas if we can hit that muscle a couple times throughout the week, spread out the work a little bit, you're not going to get quite as sore, but we're going to be stimulating muscle protein synthesis a couple times throughout the week, and we can fit in more volume total throughout the week. Generally, larger muscles are going to require more recovery time. If you do 100 bicep curls and your biceps get sore, usually they'll start coming around in a day or two. Versus if you do 100 squats and your legs are sore, that might take 2-3 days. All right, when your legs are pretty wrecked, they're going to take a little bit longer to recover because it's just a bigger muscle that needs to rebuild. So going into setting up a weekly split, say we've got somebody that's going to be training maybe 1 to 3 days a week. We're looking for those just general health benefits, or somebody that's maybe a novice. I think full body each day is going to be the most ideal, right? If we have rest days in between these days of working out, we're going to be able to stimulate all the muscles of the body. Like I said, 1 to 3 times or 2 to 3 times a week, which is going to be ideal. We can also do an upper body, lower body split. Hopefully that is more along the lines of the 3 days a week. So if we look at this example, week 1, they do 2 days of upper body, 1 day of lower. Week 2, they do 2 days of lower body, 1 day of upper, and it alternates that way. Okay, so we're still getting recovery from all of these different options, and we're also making sure that we can hit a muscle group multiple times throughout the week. With this low of frequency, going just 1 to 3 times a week, it's not very beneficial to split it up into further muscle groups. So if you're only working out 3 times a week, I would try to hit those legs at least twice a week. Hitting them once a week might not quite cut it. All right, so such a low frequency, we need to make sure that we're hitting everything on the body. Now if we get into 4 to 6 days a week, we're upping the training frequency. We can do full body, but we need to be cautious of recovery time. If you're doing a full body resistance training workout 5-6 times a week, remember 24 to 72 hours for a muscle group to recover depending on how hard you hit it. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get enough recovery time, but it's also going to depend on the total volume throughout the week and things like that. The upper-lower split can work pretty well for this one, as long as we've got some rest days in there and we're not hitting the legs maybe 48 hours later when you've still got some soreness going on. So if we've got proper rest days implemented in there, we can still do that upper-lower, hitting each of those 2-3 times a week or so. We can also do something like a push-pull leg, so upper body push, upper body pull, and then followed by lower body. So this is an example of the push-pull leg. So you can see day 1, upper body push, so going away from us. This will be more of the pecs, shoulders, triceps. Day 2 is the upper body pull, going more into the back and biceps. And then day 3 will be your lower body, your legs. And then 4, we can hit a full upper body since we've had that day to recover. And then 5, we hit the lower body again. We can also split up the days into our training goals, so we can be a little bit more specific for what we're trying to accomplish that day. So for example here, day 1, we do upper body strength, so lower rep range, heavier weights. Day 2, we do lower body strength, same thing, lower rep range, heavier weights. Day 3, we go into a full body power day, so this is all about moving fast, force production, power output, not going to get us too sore. And then day 4, we go into upper body hypertrophy, higher reps. We're going for that muscle soreness, that pump. And then day 5, lower body hypertrophy. So you can see from day 1 to day 4, we have plenty of rest to let that upper body recover. And then from day 2 to day 5, we have plenty of rest to let that lower body recover from the strength and the hypertrophy work. Once we kind of have the week set up, we're going to need to understand how do we order exercises within a workout. Understanding the order of intensity of exercises. So generally we want power exercises first. When we're fresher, we can get that rate of force production, that high motor unit recruitment. Then we can move into our strength work, so heavier weights, lower reps, then into hypertrophy, followed by endurance, those higher reps. We need to understand how the size of muscles affects the order of exercises. So usually we want to hit the larger muscles first and then get into the smaller muscles later in that session. The complexity of the movement, when you're fresh, we want to do things that maybe require more coordination, more multi-joint exercises, and then as you get more tired and you go on throughout your workout, we can do things that don't require as much coordination and more single joint exercises. Here's an example of a lower body workout. So you'll see that we start off with some box jumps, 5 sets of 3, power output here. We're trying to be explosive. And then we go into our back squats, 4 sets of 5, heavier weights, a little bit lower reps, followed by leg extensions and leg curls into that 10 to 12 rep range, muscle hypertrophy. And then we finish off with a couple sets of some high rep glute bridges and crunches. Okay, that's going to be our endurance work. So we've got more complex exercise like a box jump and a back squat up at the beginning of the session, and then a little bit more single joint, less coordination required exercises towards the end of the workout. So that's it for the first part of this programming lecture series. So next we're going to learn how to put it together into an actual program. So we understand the initial consult, factors to consider, how to set up individual weeks and workouts, but now we're going to put these workouts and weeks into a total program of 4 weeks long, 6 weeks long, 18 weeks long, however long the program is going to last. We're going to start learning how to look at the bigger picture of things in the next series.